Okay, so I just needed a moment to get myself sorted. There are so many technical difficulties that were happening, and so I'm just gonna go ahead and start. So I'm using my phone again. It is not the most optimal way of doing this stream. I tried to do it a different way, but it's not working out. Maybe next week we'll have a better start. So it also might be a little shaky because of my setup, but I hope you can bear with me for today while I get things sorted for next week. Um, so I'm just gonna see if I can get some inspiration actually for what I'm gonna do. I'm treating this draw with me as a warm up to before I get into my other work. And to be honest, I don't actually get a chance to do that. So I'm just going to start with what I love to do, and simply that's just sketching. So let's see what I end up with. If you do have any questions, you can go ahead and leave them in the chat. I'll be more than happy to answer them. I am trying to figure out a way to see my messages because my phone is actually above my eye level. So it is a little bit challenging, but I'm pulling up the stream right beside me on another screen. So everything should be fine. So let's just see what happens in the next 30 minutes because that's the time that I have to give towards this. I definitely have to apologize for how long it took me to get this live up in the first place. I have been tinkering for so long and it really just began to eat away actually at my understanding of what I was doing. I started to doubt if I was even supposed to be streaming at all, but you know what? The I'm gonna commit to what I started. So I'm glad I'm just figuring it out and going with it. If you notice anything is off, if you can't hear me, I really hope that you can let me know because I genuinely can't see that much of what you guys can see. So I'm just trusting and hoping that it's clear and that you can understand everything. In a moment, I'm going to go over some of the questions I received again towards getting into children's book illustration and breaking those things down. I received a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to get through just a couple of them today and then resume next week into continuing answering all the questions because there's so much. And I actually thought, maybe I should go ahead and make a video to answer them, but it actually made me really anxious instead, and I hesitated on making videos at all. So that's actually why it took me so long to get back onto my channel because I was really overwhelmed with the feedback and how I can answer it correctly. But I think live video is definitely the way for me to go. I'm much more comfortable speaking about things live than I am doing it pre-recording it and then editing it and then uploading it, as much as it would help curb a lot of errors in my speech and make it easier to compile all the information. It's just so much harder to find the time to edit, and editing is a whole skill in itself. So that's already a challenge. So I do not have any reference for this illustration. I'm just following the flow, and I don't give myself that much time to do that anyways. I usually just dive straight into work, and I know that's not the best practice, but juggling life and just my free time, it's really brought me to a place where the moment I have an opportunity to draw, I will just work on my work without giving myself time to explore sketching and having fun. So to be honest, this is probably one of the most fun things that I've done for myself in the realm of creating art in a really long time. So I actually don't know what I'm gonna do with this. Mm, I guess I'll give her some sort of bob. That's what's coming to me. So I want to welcome every single person who is on the stream and is taking their time out of their day to even be here, whether it's for a split moment or not. Today I'm just doing a draw with me and seeing where things end up. I am super rusty and I'm excited to see how these draw with me's are going to allow me to explore my creativity because I have been so stunted in the past a while. So it's going to be really interesting to see what my creativity is like, because when you draw as an illustrator, at least for me, every day, and you don't give yourself time to have a creative outlet, so you're always just making work for other people. When you do that, you kind of get disconnected from what you like to make, and your hands are kind of more accustomed to drawing what people ask you to do. So because of that, I personally feel like I'm going in circles with my own art right now. It's really weird. Hey, it's good to see you. It's really awesome to see you, Art of Umbra. I hope you have a wonderful nap, by the way. I really hope you do and that you rest well. Thanks for coming by. So yeah, it can be a lot sometimes, even being an illustrator. I feel like for myself, where I started, it felt like it was definitely like the greatest thing I could do for myself to become an artist full time. But the more art that I do is the more appreciation I have for other careers that kind of keep society afloat. And I value what I do and I cherish it. But I also see how draining it can be to be drawing all the time. And I feel like I suffer from kind of doubting what it is that I what was I gonna say? I guess you can come to a point where you doubt whether or not what you're doing is actually making society better. And I guess that's kind of challenging at times. And so being an illustrator, I find like you really do have to just love what you do and know that the good that you're doing is being appreciated by the people who enjoy seeing your art, and that really is enough. Because my husband works in the hospital, and I feel like that's such an amazing thing. And sometimes I think to myself, like, wow, I literally just draw picture books all day. And it really makes me question, you know, is what I'm doing enough? But I also have to remind myself and give myself grace that, you need these outlets like art to give people a vehicle to see themselves in different worlds, imagining themselves in a different position. And even for me, because it's for children, I'm really helping to foster creativity, imagination, and giving them an outlet to see themselves in the future. So it's a different type of application that's necessary, and that is appreciation. Thank you so much, Art of Amber. She says, good luck with your stream. You're doing amazing as an artist. Thank you. It's definitely been a wild ride because being an artist, I feel like a lot of people misunderstand. They think it's just easy. And I wouldn't even say that it's easy. I would just say it's natural. It just comes naturally to me, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's easy, because even when you're creating art, whether if you're just satisfied with what your art looks like right now, like maybe that's quote unquote easy, but I've never reached a point where I'm like, this is everything and I don't need to do anything else. It's never happened. And I don't know if you guys have experienced that, where you feel like, hey, this is I'm done. And whatever career that you have, where you feel like, I've reached the end and that's more than enough and you don't have to go any further, especially if it's something you love. I don't know, how do you guys feel about that? Because for me, I feel like the more I love something is the more I want to develop it. And it doesn't mean that I want to make this like super hyper realistic art. I feel like it's more or less just trying to convey ideas a bit more clearly, or allowing people to connect a bit more strongly to my art. And because of that, I'm always trying to find a way to improve maybe the message, maybe the colors, but not necessarily the skills. I feel like I've reached a point where I'm like, I'm kind of tired. Kind of tired of making it more perfect or learning a whole bunch of stuff. I want to learn how to make the message better. And I feel like that's my stage right now. Thank you, Susan. If you love what you do, you're meant to do it. Thank you. That is so reassuring. Thanks. I've definitely reached that point where I've stopped trying to change my art to make it be perceptually good for other people, or like to fit idea of what art should be. I used to think that I need to make hyper realistic art or just super detailed art of, for example, like Kim Jong-gi. He, although he passed away, his art will live forever. His skill set, his perspective, his understanding of the body, and just his ability to just put everything in his mind on paper. That is incredible, but I am not him. So, there has to be an appreciation of what you can do and what your mind is able to create, because without that, who are you and who's going to advocate for the ideas inside of your mind? And I really can't depend on outside forces to validate that what I'm seeing in my mind is potentially good or good for others, if not good for myself. And the minute I feel like I'm going outside, I feel like I'm challenging my own thoughts. I'm inviting other people to see, hey, is this good enough? And I've done that for a long time. When I was starting out, I wouldn't even say starting out, maybe in my early 20s. And I've been drawing since I was probably in grade 2. And I started taking it seriously when I was in high school, in my 10th grade of high school. So I feel like there definitely is a space where improvement can be beneficial, but it's not the end all and it's not the be all. That's for sure. And being a children's book illustrator has most definitely taught me that you don't have to be the best artist to write a great story. And that's really, well, depending on the field you're in, that's really all that matters, is if people are connecting to what you're doing, if connection is what you're striving for. And I guess because in my realm, that's what matters to me. I see that I don't need to prioritize certain aspects of my art that aren't actually going to improve the reading of how things are coming through. Hi, Zay. Thanks for joining the stream. I'm just making an illustration here, a drawing, just sketching and seeing what comes out. I don't know where it's going, and I did not plan this all the way through because I'm not very much of a spontaneous kind of artist. I'm very planned, as you know. So it's very interesting to see what I'm doing. I feel very bored with what I'm drawing, but I'm allowing the bad stuff to come out first that I don't like. And maybe over time I'll start to enjoy it after I develop the sketch a bit more. I hope you all are having a great day, morning, afternoon. Maybe it's nighttime here in Toronto. It is a little afternoon, almost 1 p.m., I believe, and the snow is coming down. Oh my gosh, I did not expect that. I wish I kind of looked at the forecast a bit earlier and could kind of plan the day a bit more better. So I woke up a little late because I was not feeling well. So I just pretty much woke up and started this. Well, I tried to start the stream at 12 p.m. So that's essentially what my day has been like so far. I get Friday as my rest day. So that's that. Thank you, Zay. I'm excited to see the results too. I have no idea what's going to happen. On my channel, I'm actually really interested in going in the education route inside of teaching. Some of you might know, but I was a teacher for a little while. And it was a really hard period for me being a teacher because I loved art so much. But maybe I should consider doing art teaching and doing that through YouTube and seeing what that looks like. Actually, I don't need to save it. Yeah, I'm not liking it. I think we gotta start over, guys. I really think we need to start over. So let's just do a straight on view instead. Okay, this is so crooked, but we'll figure it out. Just trust the process. I definitely speak to myself when I draw. So while I'm drawing, I should actually pull up some of the questions that I received. So let's see about this one. Let's see. Just give me 1 second while I pull this up. So, first question is from 31 Pigeons. That is such a cute name. First question is, how would you find clients to work with online? Would you use an app such as Instagram and then authors would contact you after finding your work on there? Or what website or app did you find that helped you gain traction for your work and begin making money? So, how would I find clients to work with online? Definitely, what I would suggest is if you've already got your portfolio in order and some mock ups, and a mock up is essentially um, creating a prototype of what a book would look like using your illustration. So you go online, maybe you would download some empty books that can be filled on Photoshop, and essentially it's just white pages, and then you just juxtapose your art into that. Once you have those, like once you have your portfolio filled with potentially mock-ups, and this is the route of working like author, like artist to author directly, the self-publishing route for authors who do self-publishing. Once you have those things done and you have a portfolio, I would suggest starting on Instagram. In this time, in this age, it's Instagram, TikTok. In my time, I would say Facebook, and I would still strongly suggest Facebook as well, because you want to start to congregate amongst people who are creating, who are writing books essentially. What a huge tablet. What huge tablet do you use? So Zay, this is the Cintiq. It is a Wacom Cintiq that I'm using, and I think it's about 27 inches. It is pretty big. Thank you. I love it a lot. It's really big. So I would definitely suggest Facebook, and Instagram, TikTok. But the thing isn't, you don't want to just use Facebook. You want to use it in a strategic way. So create your page, or whether it's Instagram, TikTok, or Facebook, create your page and start associating your entire page with children's book illustration, with art, and so people know the minute they click your image, they're going to be surrounded by art and what you do. You want to take out the guesswork that you're an illustrator right from the get-go, and make that process as simple as possible. So whether it's going online and creating reels, creating TikToks, creating YouTube shorts that say, hey, I'm an illustrator, this is what I do, as long as you continue to send that message out there, you have to um, realize that people who are looking for that content immediately, once they hear the words illustrator, children's book illustration, they're going to be connected to you, or they might know someone who is looking for someone who does what you do. So you have to just continue to market yourself. And it can sound very broad to say like, hey, you know, you need to market yourself as an artist, but the best way I would say is like you just need to have a sign on your forehead at all times that says, hey, I do this one thing, and I believe I do it well, and I'd love to do this thing for you. Granted, the story you're making and what you're hoping for from working for me all worked out and all of the stars align, you know, that would be a great opportunity. It's just letting people know what you do. So it's creating content essentially it's creating content that says, hey, this is what I do and this is what I am, and finding ways to do that is not necessarily creative, because it doesn't have to be one of a kind reel. It's just doing it in multiple ways regularly, so people know when they see your account, when they come across your work, like, hey, this person is available, this person does children's books. Because it's not enough to just make art. A lot of people make art, but do you make children's books? Do you make illustrations? Do you make art that is designed to be used for TV, for comics, for animation? You want to make sure you're associated with the right thing, because a lot of people, they see artists but they don't think that they would want to work with them, because they're not working with authors, they're not working with animators. So you have to be very clear and make it as easy as possible for the people you want to work with to know, hey, I'm looking for someone like you, so let's do this. I'm so glad I can inspire you, Susan. If you do have any questions, let me know. I'm definitely going to make it an effort to be on here every Friday at noon and answering questions and drawing with me and just having this space open so we can draw together, we can hang out, we can talk and encourage each other, because you know it's really hard. It's really hard to just not know everything. And even if you're not an artist per se, or like you're not doing it as a career, like just knowing that the community is present, and it's not just like when you go on Instagram or you're on YouTube, you're not just consuming content. Like, we're all people, and this human interaction is so important. So I'm glad I can share this moment with you. Most definitely, because I get in my head a lot, you know. I It's so easy to fall into the mental trap, at least for myself, that, you know, I just have to do better, whatever better is. But whenever I actually slow down and engage with people one to one, I realize, you know, I'm kind of internalizing what shorts are telling me, what Instagram reels are telling me, what TikToks are telling me. And the fast consumption of media makes me feel so much more separated from people. So I love that doing these Instagram lives, I can really engage with a person and not just like a short clip that is 15 seconds long, and my brain comes to its own conclusions on its own. So I'm liking this so far. I do not want to sabotage it. But you see, even that mindset is not healthy, because if I can do this, I can do it again. So whenever you feel like you're making really good art and you're like, man, like, I don't want to mess this up, if you did it once, you can definitely do it again. So let's see. So just to remind you, this was my first sketch and it was very rough. So the more sketches you do and the more you create like art in a session, you definitely get out the roughness as you go along and you become more free. So I'll never really feel like you're trapped to one piece if it comes out good, because chances are you can do even better the next time. I really need inspiration for a hairstyle. I'm not sure which way to go. So let's see, let's answer the next question. Oh, to answer the last question, actually, what app did I use that I find that helped me gain traction? It was definitely Facebook and Instagram. And to be honest, right now, YouTube. YouTube is an amazing resource that you can use. And I find like not a lot of people use it, not a lot of artists use it. And I think it's because it's just such a high effort platform. So if you can use its YouTube to advertise your art, just tell people what you do, even if you're not talking about art itself. Advertise what you do, link back to your portfolio. Okay, so I had a little bit of a, I think the internet cut out for a second. So I'm gonna repeat the question I just read. So 31 31 Pigeons asked on a different video, she said, was it difficult to find someone you could work with when you first started illustrating for authors? If so, what tips would you give us to make it easier to find someone? So, what I would say is it was difficult. Or not that it was difficult, it took time. It definitely took a lot of time to get to the place where people trusted me because they seen that I was doing this for a while. And a while doesn't necessarily mean that years. It just means how long you've been online for. Because people will associate the length of the duration of your account, let's say the first upload, with how when you started. And it's not their fault, it's just the way our brains work. So the sooner you start telling people what you do, the better. And then if you have receipts that you've been drawing for X amount of time, that'll speak for itself. So once you have your portfolio, people just need to keep seeing art from you and get comfortable with the fact that you're a real person and not just a bot, and that this is not um it's not a scam because people are investing in you. And I think the most important part of this process is that people feel safe to work with you. And if people aren't feeling safe, then you're already starting off on a really bad foot. So prioritize people feeling like your content, your media, your work is a real and it's created by a real person. So I highly suggest, if it means going live, if it means uploading a photo of yourself, including yourself inside of your posts, that really helps people feel like, this is a person if you don't have the social proof. So if you've already created a book, that speaks for itself. So you already have some sort of saying like leverage that says, well, I've done this before. But if you haven't created a book before, whether for an author or for yourself, you definitely want to make that process of telling them, I may not have made a book before, but I know how the process looks, and I can at least walk you through what making the book will look like, because that's my expertise. So never try to be something you're not. Be very clear about what it is that you're trying to communicate that you will give them. So make a promise to your potential clients on your pages and tell them, I will illustrate your book. I'm going to give you 32 pages and a book cover. For example, this is example. I'm going to give you 32 pages and a book cover for X amount. And these are the 3 stages that I'm going to walk you through. And it'll cost this much, this is the payment plan, or this is how long it'll take. You want to outline everything. Give people as much information as possible. We're kind of in an age where you want to have people pay you to get information, but the best way for people to trust you is to demonstrate that you already know, and the only way for them to know that you know is to talk about it. So definitely share, and be present online. Be a real person and not just like a bot and a tense person, a difficult person. Just be you. And I know that sounds like anybody can say that, but the sooner you can find out what that looks like for you, I feel like the sooner you can kind of rest in knowing that maybe about it's not so much about being the best artist or being the best illustrator. It's more so about finding someone who likes to work with you and who flows and connects with your personality, with as they would say, like your vibe and your way of working, because it's a partnership. Illustration and children's books is 100% a partnership, and I'll always say that. So if you don't like who you're working with, you're not going to want to work with them. And that that also applies to illustrators. You never want to just take a job because it pays you only. Sometimes you also want to consider, is this someone I actually want to work with? If they're speaking down to you, if they're not polite and they're not treating you with respect, you really have to consider, you know, this is a long-term relationship you're getting into. So really consider that. Okay, I'm gonna flip the. How do you do that again? Oh yeah, there we go. See, it looks wonky when you flip the page. So even if you're working traditionally, you always want to use a mirror or really study your work and get it to be level. See how the jaw is off? That is a direct result of me just drawing out of convenience. So if I correct it now, it'll just look more uniform when I flip it again. And sometimes you have to do it a couple times. This is a part of the process I really don't like because you start to see how wonky things look. It's so awkward. It's awkward to me. It's better, but I'm not feeling like particularly. Yeah, I'm not feeling particularly like headstrong to fix it. So I'm gonna flip it back. I'm flipping the canvas back horizontally to how it was before. Yeah, I'm not feeling like it's the end of the world, so I'm just gonna keep going. I know a lot of people can be very particular about that, but that is not me. Sometimes I just want to get the work done and allow things to fix themselves along the way. So, let's see. So the next question is it really necessary to go to an art school to get an art related degree to be able to work as a children's book illustrator? 100% no. It's not necessary and it's not required. However, it can be useful. I started in art school, but I was not studying children's book illustration, nor was I studying illustration as a whole. I was actually a fine arts painter, and I worked with traditional medium. Acrylics was my jam. I loved I love acrylics, but ever since I got into children's book illustration and the need for the work pace to be a bit more fast and efficient, I just started doing digital. I literally forced myself to learn digital art for a profession in a professional way, and I went with it. So you do not need to go to art school at all. However, getting training cannot hurt, and building up on your skills is never going to be a bad thing, to be honest. So I would definitely encourage anybody to go that route and see what happens. Actually, I wouldn't even say see what happens. Go that route and develop the skills that you know are necessary to be a really good children's book illustrator. I really don't like to give people false hope because it's, to me, it's not really a nice thing, especially because I've spent so many years trying to figure out like what is children's book illustration? Like, why are people so tight-lipped about this thing? But I came to realize it's not so much that like people aren't talking about it because they're trying to be tight-lipped. I feel like maybe they're just so busy. When I got into it, I realized how busy it can get, and sometimes you don't even know how you got into it. It just happened. So, what I would highly suggest is if you have the finances to afford school and it's more of for the love of art, definitely invest in it. If it's not a physical school, there's a lot of online schools you can invest in, and that could be going to Schoolism. Schoolism by Bobby Chiu is amazing. It's incredible, and they have a lot of creators on there, artists of all kinds, animators, children's book illustrators. They have people who do editorial art, people who are illustrators for like some of the top leading game companies in the world that are coming on and giving us perspective of how to create art and through their lens, through and it's not just random. So they're giving you basically just the skills to approach art in the different factions and different industries within art itself. So Susan, you asked, how did you go about learning digital art? So, funny question. I literally came on this on Photoshop here that you're looking, and I just started drawing. I can actually show you some of my oldest work. I will show you guys. And I've been trying to figure this thing out since middle school. And then I gave up. And then I got back into it in my second year of university. So that was like a 10-year, maybe like an 8-year gap. And what I did was, when I didn't like something, I just kept not redrawing it, but I started with things that I liked to create. So if I knew I drew one little sketch that was good, I just kept doing that until I was really good at sketching. And then I started incorporating color. And even for myself right now, I don't feel like a strong colorist. But what I started to do was I referenced other art, and then I built the skill set. So if you have experience doing traditional art and you're good at coloring pens, like color pencils, you're good at gouache, you're good at acrylic paint, watercolor paint, you have to use the same strategies you would use in your traditional art in digital art. The only difference I would say I had a struggle with was finding out the shortcuts to do it digitally that I was doing traditionally, because a lot of the skills is transferable. So if you're finding like you're having a hard time learning the digital art, I feel like it could just be the software that you're having an issue with, and your skills that you're seeing in your traditional art just aren't being translated. So you just have to give yourself a little bit of time, whether it's watching videos or just learning your software. I had to take time, like years, and I'm still learning Photoshop because this thing is like so powerful. I'm only using it for painting, but you have to learn the different brush sets. Like right now, I'm using the brushes that come with Photoshop, for example. And this brush set is by Kyle. So you have to explore your options that best mimic what you're most comfortable with. So, for example, I'm using this brush called Kyle Ultimate Inking Thick and Thin, and it really makes me feel like I'm using an inking pencil or inking pen. But if you know that you're more of a painter, then I would suggest using a brush that best mimics what you're comfortable with and use that to build from it, because the brush should behave at the very least in a way that reflects traditional art. So don't try to jump into doing something totally new. Try to use the tools inside the software that mimic what real life looks like. Something, if you're pressing hard and if you're building layers, the color will actually compound and get deeper and darker. You want to use the software in a way that's familiar. Make the software work for you. That is my 100%. Like, don't start on something new if it's going to discourage you or push you away from doing digital art. You want to make the software feel like, wow, I can do the same thing that I did in my traditional stuff, just digitally, and maybe even a little better, or I can do it faster. So start with what's comfortable and what's fun first, and then learn the basics through there. I would 100% suggest that. That's what I did, because it was frustrating for. Let me just show you some of my drawings, because your girl was fighting for her life. I was fighting for my life. That's that's a fact. So let me see if I can find you some art that I did, even in my childhood years, because I'm really proud of those. I did not know how to do line art. So you know what I did? I just drew my line art in real life, scanned them in, and colored them online. They weren't perfect, but at the time I was like, this is the best I can do right now, so let me build from there. Okay, I am having a hard time finding it, but I will persist and figure it out. I know it's not far, it's super close. I always like to put this stuff in like oh, there we go. I have a whole folder dedicated to this. This used to be my favorite drawing. 2009, look at that. That's probably in grade 8. So let me see if I can make it bigger. You see how small it is? If you zoom in, it's already 200%. So this was like one of my first drawings. I realized I drew it digitally. Let's see if I can make it bigger. So, and I'm not saying that this is what your experience will be like. I'm just explaining what I did. What my skills looked like at this time traditionally was so different. So let me show you an example. So traditionally, at that time, I drew like this, which is a lot more detailed. So of course my skills look different now, but it didn't translate at all. Let me see if I can fix this, make it smaller. So this is a scan of my traditional art that I had at the time. But look at how you look, if you can compare it, I actually lost quality inside of my digital art. So it was a matter of retraining myself because I did not approach the art the same way. So if you study the art side by side, you can actually see that I didn't have an understanding of how to get the textures that I was able to create in this piece here digitally. So the sooner I can I guess make the gap smaller between my knowledge of how like pressure sensitivity and getting the roughness and getting like the feeling in my hand over here, like I had to just make the gap smaller. So this happened, like this discrepancy happened for many years until I figured it out. But if I can give you guys shortcuts to do that, I definitely want to, because there are ways to expedite the process. I just had to figure it out on my own somehow. But that's why I went into fine art painting instead of illustration because I knew how to paint in real life and build from there. And this was when I was in grade 9. So I was building my skill set and I was building my understanding of art and in the traditional realm. So essentially, I stayed there and continued to build with that understanding. So later on, I took the time and I said, no, I have to figure out the right brushes, the right sensitivity to get the same sensation, the same feeling, the same knowledge. I need to get that same knowledge I had before and use it here because it's not different. It's the exact same. It's just you have to use the tools to mimic different things. So that's how I would answer that question. I know it was really long and I apologize for the rant. I have a bad habit of doing that from time to time. But I hope I was clear, and if you have any more questions, let me know. So let's see if I can. Actually, I'm gonna do a lower cut. I'm glad I can help, Susan. I know a lot of people think Photoshop has like is super expensive and it's like not that great until they default to other softwares. You know, I agree that it can be expensive, but there's just something about it that I just can't let go of. And you know what? I just realized the other day there was like a little feature right here in Photoshop. Not that everyone uses it or anything, but like smoothing. I used to use this when I had what's it, GIMP? And I used to use paint tool Sai. It's like a smoothing. All these years, I did not know how to replicate that inside of Photoshop, and I have been struggling for my life creating books. And I was like, I wish there was like a smoothing. So if you can look at that line and compare it to it without it, it's just different. It's smooth and it makes the line just so much more neat. And I pride myself on creating art where my line work is really clean and orderly after I make like my finished art. So learning this literally in the past 3 months has been a huge game changer. So I just noticed one eye is like super huge. It's so ginormous. The more I create videos on YouTube is the more respect I have for artists who do this full time. To create art and do video is very different. It's a different experience. It's not exactly the easiest thing in the world. But I want this to be like a muscle that becomes easier for me. So I'm really gonna work on getting on here weekly and developing my work a lot more. So let's see if I can go in and make this line work really clean. So I think if I make a clean line art, then I'm gonna stop there. That's my goal for today. Let's see if I can do this. Well, I know I can do it. Well, let's see how it turns out. So I always turn down the layer to like 5% or lower, because admittedly, sometimes you're creating work if you're doing digital and your sketch just looks better than your line art. And I find the only way to curb that is to draw as faint of a layer as possible so that you're actually seeing what you're drawing and you're not seeing your sketch. You have to kind of trick your brain in a way. It took me a long time to figure that out, but I'm glad that I did, because it's really challenging. So I have my regular canvas that I'm working on, and then I have another one here. And I definitely highly suggest doing things in one stroke unless your style or method of drawing or painting is what was I gonna say again? I would definitely do it in one stroke unless your style or method of painting is to have things a little bit more textured. So let's see how this turns out. If you don't like a line, do not hesitate to correct it, because it does not have to be perfect, but you should at least like it. So it's worthwhile to just do it over. And if there's anything I do want to say as I like wrap up this sketch, it's like being an artist is hard enough already, and this translates to art in like all fields. Whether it's science, like the arts and sciences, like how that can be an art form, whether it's dance, whether it's music, you really have to be careful who you listen to that says, this is a good thing that you're doing, or, you're not very good at it, or you'll never really be able to do this as a career or make money off. You can't listen to people sometimes, because the amount of times that I've been told that I'm a bad artist, that I will not be able to make a living out of this, that I will inevitably just fail, it has like throughout my whole life. If I listened to them, I would not be here today. And you have to be careful who you listen to, because even if you're a beginner, that does not determine where you end. And even if you're intermediate or you're just doing it as a hobby, it does not mean that that's a bad thing either. It doesn't have to always evolve into the thing the person who's giving you a critique turns into. So really just be careful who you listen to. Receive honest feedback that's a genuine critique about, how can you get better and what the person is feeling or experiencing looking at your work. But you can't internalize everything people say, because you're the artist, and sometimes you already invested how many years into learning about your craft and your skills, and other people who are doing it, while people on the outside, they only have that experience of seeing art because you're showing it to them. So you really have to be careful who you're listening to, because someone else's understanding about your creativity or that process is not definitive of what you're capable of doing, because they might not even know about this whole world of experiences that you have creating art because they've never taken that time to explore it. So just be careful who you listen to. I definitely have to put that out there. I think a year or months before I even got my first author that I worked with, I was told by someone who works, like a family friend, that, hey, you shouldn't become an illustrator. And if I listened to her, I'd never be here today. And she gave me her reason why I shouldn't do it. But that wasn't me. Like, her reason of why I shouldn't do it was essentially saying that, she knew someone in her family, her dad couldn't do it, and it wasn't possible for him, so it isn't possible for me. But that's your experience is not my experience. And the steps your dad take doesn't mean that I have taken those steps too. So even if that happened, I don't think that's a reason to tell someone else that they won't be capable of doing it. So you have to stand behind your experience and what you believe and inside of your craft, because who's going to vouch for it otherwise? Some people really can't see things as possible unless it's done. So you can't use someone else's limitations as a springboard for your own success or possibilities. Some people think that you have to be raised into an artisan family, people who are crafters, in order to become a really great painter or just a respected painter at all, but that's not the case. It really isn't. God gives us all kinds of gifts. And to limit it to just, I need to come from a certain place for this to happen is very limiting. It's a very limiting belief. It's just unfortunate that sometimes we're raised in a way that the outside voice that's speaking to us is becomes some sort of like validator, but they don't actually distinguish that, hey, this is what I believe, and you as a child or you as another person don't have to take this on. This is what I'm saying and what I think, but you're allowed to believe what you think and have your own path. So don't allow other people's expectations of what should happen or what they believe should happen to determine whether or not you should keep going. Sometimes you just have to see for yourself, because your story can be so different. Your experience can be so different. There's still so much good that can happen. So, and even when bad things do happen, I don't think it's always a sign that it'll always be that way. And there's honestly some things worth persevering for. And it's worthwhile to evaluate why we do things and why we choose to continue, especially if it's a hobby, something you enjoy. I feel like that's something worth protecting, because it's not easy to find what you love. It's not always easy. And not everyone has that joy and has that interest. A lot of people wake up in the morning and they don't know what to do and why they're still here, and what keeps them tethered is simply knowing, I have something that I like to do, and I want to keep doing that one thing. So we can't really take on what other people say as a definitive measurement of, well, it's not that important. Well, maybe you should try something else because that field is dying. AI is going to take over the world. It's like it's not true. Like, you really, there's one thing where it's associated with fear, and it's another thing where it's like, you have to look at the fact, and you have to give time, some space to happen to see, what is going to change, because I'm pretty sure it's not overnight. So it's worthwhile to do some investigating and to see what can happen I actually got a comment last week on my last stream that I wanted to answer. Now that we got to this point, I'm almost done this sketch, so maybe I can finish it around the same time. So the question was essentially, actually, let me pull it up so that I don't make any mistakes. The question, let's get this going. So this is by Marcus Leon, I think. Was wondering what your thoughts were on AI art and its effects on the picture book industry. So personally, my thoughts on it are, I don't feel very. One second. So I don't really feel threatened by AI art coming into existence at all, because it's not really something. I feel like AI would be a tool, and more than anything, people connect to people. Humans connect to people, and we don't actually consider, like, if we actually look at AI art as a concept and as a way that people say, hey, I'm going to just use AI art to create children's books in the future, you have to really think about what that means. Because in a lot of fields, people they don't treat what robots make as special. It's just automatic. So we actually don't give a lot of credit to robots because it's special, and people connect to the human experience no matter what. Imperfections are actually a lot better than um than we think. So in the space of children's books, I feel like what makes it special is that when you create a book, when you're an illustrator, there's this thing that happens when you're working with an author that connects you to, because you understand each other. And it's hard to see from the outside looking in, but it's a really big thing when you select an illustrator to work with. You choose them based on their values and based on their portfolio, what they make and what they like. So as a Christian woman, I have the values that I profess, and I try to share inside of my themes, or that where my themes are inspired from, where my art is inspired from. And that's what pulls the author to work with me, because sometimes you just want to have that connection. But if it's a robot and you just want to, dish it out immediately, well, then it's just art. But I feel like there's so much more power in saying that, you know what, I work with this illustrator. She's also a Christian, and she understands. So now she knows that when I'm creating my work, it's coming from a place that's similar to her. And even if I'm working with an author who's not Christian, whatever they see in my art, they're believing and seeing that, wow, this is something I want to be replicated into my work going forward. A robot doesn't have an angle. A robot is a piece of everything. And I feel like people like to choose sides. People like to feel seen, I should say. People like to feel seen. And a robot isn't going to make you feel seen. And the connections you have by working with a real person, I can understand that people will say, they're not going to want to work with people simply because, the time factor, and it'll be cheaper potentially to just get free art. But that's not always the case. When it comes down to professionalism, people want people, whether it's sports or other forms of entertainment. We hire people, not robots, because robots are tools. And I feel like until we get to a space where we see that robots are taking over the field, I feel like we shouldn't be too concerned about AI, because we aren't there yet. And it's not saying that, I'm being complacent. It's definitely not that. I think this is more so about human behavior than it is about AI and our industry. However, I do believe that art theft that AI has been getting known for is really bad, and I don't support that. However, I do not see it taking over the industry. because there is power in knowing that the illustrator that you worked with, the author that you're working with, went through the experiences, through the story that they told. And that is a sacred place that a robot can never have. So there's more story inside a story, having the people who worked on it to be real. And if you take that away, you just have art, but there's no connection between the author to it. And I know that's not always bad, because there are spheres where, a lot of people make products using Canva, and Canva has a lot of free stuff, but all that art there was made by an artist. So, we can't totally knock AI because it's made by people. And it'll always be a tool, but when it comes on to professionalism, you're always going to want a real human on there, because nuance and all of those things can't just simply be replicated just because. So that's definitely what I would say regarding that. AI doesn't scare me, not one bit. I also don't have time for it to scare me, because there's a lot of artwork to be made, and artwork takes time to make, and that's why it costs so much, and rightfully so. AI might make things cheaper, but it's definitely not making things more human, because the humanity is dictated by the people who are working in the field right now. So it's always going to follow what people are doing, at least in this time. So that's how I would answer that question. So I'm almost done this piece here. Let me see if I can draw the lips. And so I can't really save it the way I wanted right now. But as you can see, so this is with the background. Sorry, this is the sketch. You can't even see the sketch probably. But the sketch is under there now. I've raised it. Let me zoom in so you can see better. So as you can see, this is with the sketch underneath. When I turn it really low, how I was working on it, it looks like this. So that's that. I can turn off that layer. And this is like the base sketch that I have underneath. So I feel pretty good about that. It was fun. It was really fun to do this with you guys. I really appreciate every single one of you that stuck around, because I'm not used to multitasking like this. Me, Shalene, is like not a multitasker, but it's a skill that I'm willing to work on, and I love to talk and to share. And if there's anything I should do, if there's anything you'd like to hear more about, to learn more about, you can let me know. Otherwise, I think I'll be back online next week Friday at noon, and drawing again. Most definitely. I'm gonna try to get the stream to work this time, so that I can actually give you guys a better quality video, and maybe get another perspective of me actually talking into the camera as well. That was the vision. I promise you that was the vision, but it didn't go as planned. But I will work on that, and I am seriously so happy with how the sketch turned out, because my sketches and my drawings have not been cute lately. So I would say this is essentially the end of this live stream. Thank you to everybody who watched this far and for sticking around. This is me, Shalene. So have a wonderful day. I'm more than happy to see you guys next week to join in. If you have any suggestions, let me know. Email me, message me on Instagram if you like. I'll be here. You're so welcome, Susan. Thanks for joining. I'll see you.